All right. Hello and welcome. I am JT, host of JT Invests in You, and today I'm joined by Sebastian Quinn. Sebastian is the CEO of Yieldly and Yesports. Yieldly was the first mover in the Algorand DeFi space, and Yesports is a Yieldly esports NFT marketplace and metaverse engagement platform on the Polygon blockchain. However, a lot of questions have now come up since the announcement of two new tokens, iYieldly, the Yieldly governance token, and YESP, the native token for the Yesports platform. I'm hoping that this interview will answer all of those questions and so many more. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome to the show Sebastian Quinn. How you doing, Sebastian? It's great to have you here.
Yeah, likewise, JT. Good to be here and nice to see everyone online.
Yeah, it's great. I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure a lot of the people in the community also appreciate you coming on the show. So if you could just take a moment to, introduce yourself and introduce the project for anyone that might not know, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, perfect. I appreciate that. So obviously, I think most people are quite familiar with Yieldly and us being the first sort of DeFi project to launch on Algorand, um, and we launched in May and spent sort of 5 or 6 months as the only DeFi project on Algorand until Tiny Man came along, and the rest has been history and what we've been able to do. But yeah, I think today we wanted to sort of start to go through and set the record straight a little bit, and just clarify some things that have been coming up, and and just point everyone in the right, bring everyone along with on the journey that that we as an organization have been going on, and the community being very paramount through that. And very excited to answer a lot of questions that have come through, and and get into some of the detail around some of the queries that people have had.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's great to hear. So why don't we just jump right into some of the questions that we all have on our minds? So a lot of people have been asking, what is Yesports? It kind of feels like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think it did unfortunately catch us by surprise on how surprised so many people were about that part of our business that we've been building steadily. Um, you know, I think one thing to really kind of set the scene for all of it is, where did it come from, and why and how does it fit into what Yieldly's done today. So we all are kind of familiar with Yieldly and what we've been able to do, and I think perhaps we haven't been the best at communicating. Taking the time with the community to actually just communicate what Yieldly has achieved to date, and the implications of that, of where we go forward over the next 12 to 24 months. I think we've seen some great roadmaps, and I know there's a question on that, so I won't sort of preempt it. But for Yieldly, I think we need to take a step back and go, what have we done today? And what we can certainly see, we haven't been very good at communicating. The fact that we've given out sort of $13 million, dollars worth of tokens out to Yieldly holders, that we've given out over 750,000 algos to Yieldly holders. We've launched the first NFT staking products in the Algorand ecosystem. We've distributed 190 plus NFTs to the community. We've seen at certain points in that NFT journey that we were up to, I think there was 1 week that we were Yieldly branded NFTs were somewhere in the order of 60% of the value of NFTs being traded. And so there's so much there's so many things that we've built in this business that are not specifically correlated to what our DeFi product is. And that's the product that's got us 33,000 users. It's got us 3 million plus transactions. It's the product that's had 5 external audits, and is doing fabulous things that we can reiterate and go into a little bit later. But the Yesports product is a product that came out of the huge amount of interest that existed around the NFT product that we've built. So the NFT staking really caught the attention of our esports team partners. So they're the folks, that we're very well documented. We've had Talon, Fact Revolution, and Boom Esports. all helping us tell a story to their users about what Yieldly and what that DeFi product is. And we saw that we've seen the success of those partnerships already with Yieldly when it comes to the launch on ZipMex, for example, where Talon is one of the leading, actually it's the leading esports team in Thailand, and they've been out there talking about what Yieldly does, to our new Thai users. And I don't think there's the facts don't disagree with us when we say it was a hugely successful launch into Thailand for the Yieldly token, and continues to be one of our growth areas. But bring that forward to NFTs and esports teams. Basically, the NFT product caught the attention of the market. They saw that there was the esports market, and they saw that there was everything else that's going on in the NFT space across across other ecosystems, and then across the intersection of how NFTs actually are starting to become a tool for mainstream adoption of crypto businesses. And so we've seen professional sports teams, we've seen we've seen musicians, we've seen top tier fine artists, we've seen big brand name companies all wanting to launch NFTs for their audiences, and esports teams are no different. So we were fortunate to be the beneficiaries of a number of inbound requests from top tier teams across the world, and we've been in a discussion with a number of them for 4 or 5 months now to understand their needs, to really go into detail and really try and pull together what exactly they're after. And they want an NFT that allows them to get closer to their fans. They want to be able to use this as a product that they can bring their fans closer. They want to have access to Discord servers. They want to have access to Twitter Spaces. They want to have these NFTs be the tool with which they bring their fans on a journey into the Web3 world. We had to then make a decision as a business. How do we fit this into a DeFi company, and a DeFi company that is happily and proudly on Algorand? There are some technical limitations, unfortunately, that still exist and are very well documented, that exist in terms of the differences between what's technically possible with an NFT on Algorand and what's technically possible with an NFT on the within the EVM ecosystems. And that technical difference is a very critical piece for top tier esports teams. One of the key things that they want, for example, is that they want an NFT that allows their fans to be able to have access to places like OpenSea. They want an NFT that allows them to be able to pre-program and put in to pre-program and allow them to do certain things that are relevant to that organization that you just can't do, technically can't do currently with Algorand. And so it was, there is a number of factors like that kind of go into a decision to go, well, how do you contemplate bringing a fantastic opportunity for the Yieldly organization to bring a whole host of new users into the ecosystem, and how do you do that without how do you do that in giving a product that is going to work, has the technical capability to actually delight the next million plus users from our esports team partners, and how do you do that in a way that actually is still coherent with what we've built. And so we're obviously building this esports product over on on an EVM chain, but it is something that will make it a much more apparent the relationship between that and why it makes sense with Yieldly. But the high level piece is that we built bridges in Yieldly for a reason. We built cross-chain interoperability on Yieldly for a reason. We launched an ERC20 token day one on Yieldly before we even had an ERC for liquidity, before there was liquidity available on the Algorand side. We have sat there and been the first to deliver very core critical tech in an ecosystem that at that time when we launched in May last year, that there was still there was nothing. We've since delivered that, and we continue to want to deliver tech that will bring these worlds together. It's a hugely prosperous world on Algorand. Great growth in the users. Similar, the similar sort of technical and user growth story happening in Polygon. It's just at a magnitude larger in terms of users at the moment, and we have the tech to go between both. And so it was a very deliberate decision. What was sort of, as I said right at the top, what was not deliberate though was to surprise anyone. We're very proud of where we've come from with what we've built on Yieldly, and we'll continue to build it. And
so, sorry to cut you off. Before we get too far into it, you did just mention, a whole lot of things. Like you had the Yieldly token, which is an ERC20 token. That you mentioned that you created these bridges, these Ethereum bridges. So the real question on everyone's mind is why create the new YESP token when, as you said, you already have an Ethereum compatible token with the ERC20 Yieldly token?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two parts to that. The very clear picture is that the two businesses or the two goals of the business is very different. And so, you would have a fundamental, you would have this fundamental block, all things being equal, you would still have this fundamental block in terms of what the actual purpose or utility of that token will be. The utility of the Yieldly token as it stands is to be basically your point of access to the most rewarding DeFi ecosystem on Algorand, right? So you as a token holder continue to get the benefit of, the millions of dollars worth of tokens that we will continue to distribute. You get access to the, the LP pool staking that, will continue, that is a phenomenal product for the space. And we can go and, we literally took a community token to the second largest LP pool in less than 24 hours on TinyMat. The ability of the Yieldly token to be a piece of critical value for DeFi is paramount, and we have a very good and clear roadmap for what that DeFi business is going to be doing, and how that's going to continue to grow. The other piece of the puzzle is that the actual the second piece is that the commerciality doesn't stack up. For us to go out and be able to sponsor and attract some of the largest esports teams in the world, for us to be able to go out and continue to build out to take the risk and build out tech, new tech for a new ecosystem, that is, as we've seen with many other projects that have continued to, launch, the last 12 months across Algorand and elsewhere, hugely risky proposition, for the best of teams, when it comes to things like being hacked or exploited and whatever else. And it's not something that we felt would make any sense to sell down Yieldly tokens from a treasury point of view, to go on to build out a non-related product, to go and tackle a business that is that we can, if it's going to work, can build comfortably from an investor network that will support it, and then bring very real value back to the Yieldly token holders anyway. So we went through the exercise. We talked to every single one of the of one of our kind of VC partners from Yieldly. We've workshopped with them the different angles. We've talked about the implications, and the end result is that what is the is the most sensible kind of way forward is to build, to go take the risk, build a product. If it works, fantastic. Have a multitude of pathways that it continues to add value back to what Yieldly does, and then is sits in its own differentiated space that will continue, which we can get into. It will continue to add value back once increased technology. Once there is sort of better technology out there. So when we have interoperability between NFTs, there's no reason why the Y NFT product that's being built and will soon launch on the Algorand side, and the Yesports product, there's no world with which we don't see that being interoperable. It's just a question of when, as opposed to of how. But the question of when still quite is still an unknown. So we have to build to the market that exists now, and build with the partners that we have, and have thought through the multitude of ways to continue to add value back to Yieldy holders as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So from those of us that understand and appreciate the idea of interoperability, and those of us that understand business, the move to Polygon for this particular venture makes complete sense from those standpoints. I guess really the biggest concern was the introduction of this new token, because it's still, even with your answer, it's still not entirely clear to me why you wouldn't have used the Yieldy token, especially if you're using the Yieldy brand. I mean, you say it's a new project, but to me, if it was a completely new project, why not start a whole new brand with it, as opposed to carrying on the Yieldy brand but starting an entirely new token? That's part of my gripe. But you did answer the why for the Polygon, which I do totally understand and appreciate. But I suppose my next question is, does this are there any conflicts of interest between this round of funding through Polygon Studios and the Asia Accelerator through the Algorand Foundation?
No, there's not. I mean, there's no world where there's a conflict there. I mean, as I mentioned, we've gone and spoken with all of our investors and laid this out as the evolution from Yieldy. We're not alone in a company, in the ecosystem to be building great tech and have more than one token existing under it. And I think, and I hear you, JT. I think it's also best. I know there's some questions coming up that will address it, but I'm still unhappy that I haven't explained it well enough to satisfy you. So I sort of might take a few more moments to do that. The thing that makes it valuable to Yieldy holders, is as follows. We have the staking product that exists. So we'll have a YESP pool, so people will be able to stake their Yieldy and earn YESP. Over time, we'll have the bridge that it will exist between both the ASA ecosystem and the Polygon ecosystem for both the YESP and the YLDY tokens. So people will be able to have, be earning the ASA token and do things with it elsewhere. So come over and utilize that within the NFT marketplace. Over time, we'll also have Yieldy being able to be used within, so the Yieldy, once it's put onto the Polygon ecosystem, and there's a whole, it's sort of preempting, but there's a whole roadmap that will come up about what Yieldy as a DeFi company will be doing cross-chain. But the end result will be that Yieldy will have utility within the marketplace as it exists in a cross-chain world. The third area that Yieldy will continue to have value is that we'll also over the next, we're just working through it with the KYC provider now, but we'll also have a launch pad up and ready to go, and be able to actually launch projects and products, including aspects of the YSP ecosystem, through the Yieldy infrastructure. So we have the YSP token, and then we also have play to earn and NFT games that are coming through that launchpad that are going to start making the connection between a NFT based company on ERC20 or in the EVM ecosystem, and a DeFi company that exists to allow people to to generate the highest rewards in Algorand. And you'll start to see how there'll be a lot more overlap. And so the NFT marketplace starts to legitimize a lot of the play to earn businesses that we will be launching through that launchpad. It starts to legitimize a lot more of the bigger NFT artists that we are able to start attracting that want to do stuff with esports teams, but we're also able to pull part of those tokens and then distribute them and issue them out through the apparatuses that we have already. So the NFT staking on Algorand, and also the NFT marketplace, which unfortunately for us, we internally we're working towards having that done, a little bit earlier than it has been. But we know that the folks that are using it in beta at the moment are giving us great feedback on what that YMT product is. But you're starting to see that there's going to be a world where the interoperability and the overlap, we can start filtering users back into this ecosystem and continuing to really drive, what we've always said we do, which is, key interoperability both for DeFi and elsewhere in the ecosystem. So, I hear you. I think we've done I think unfortunately, we've always focused on building tech as opposed to telling good stories. And last year we spent the whole time growing our tech team. We only literally this year hired our first marketing person came on board full time, or person with a marketing background came on board full time, to start scoping out. We've had our first comms and PR person come on full time to actually go back into into all of the things that we've done for Algorand, and really start telling that story a lot better, and to start telling the story of where we've come from and the literal blood, sweat and tears that we've put into the business, having that really become quite apparent to to the ecosystem, because the team for pretty much all of last year just sacrificed everything to build products that we loved and we knew that mattered to this ecosystem, and it is we've never been ones to necessarily tell that best story about that, but we're so thrilled that the product we've built still exists. We're so thrilled that the product we built has never been hacked, and we're so thrilled that the product we built continues to add value to people's lives in terms of giving them access to products that to tokens and things that they wouldn't have previously. So we know that there's that we can always do better in a lot of things, and comms and marketing is certainly one area that we will continue to grow with. But I think we certainly, I guess the key point for us is we certainly haven't launched this or are contemplating launching any of these things without having had full regard for the implications for all aspects of it. And we're Yieldly holders, we're there building the product and doing pretty much nothing else with our lives but that. So I hope that over time with some more clarifications we can sort of start to spell out how it all makes sense. But I certainly recognise that we haven't done a very good job of that, and need to always do better.
Of course. Well, one of the leading themes in crypto is scarcity. So, I can understand a lot of the concerns when all of a sudden there's an introduction of 2 new tokens. People just would like to know that their tokens aren't essentially being diluted through some other mechanism, because obviously you can't lift the cap on Yieldly, but you could, introduce other tokens in this situation. But you did touch on, why ESP token should exist. But could you dive a little bit deeper into the thought process behind iYieldly, the governance token?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, the thought process there is basically we, took a huge amount of feedback from the community about some of the things that the product could do better. And one of the key kind of trends with that, in that feedback, was around the disproportionate return, I guess, that large algo holders had, or large Yieldly holders had, in terms of winning the lottery, or having access to basically winning the algo lottery, or winning the NFT lottery. That were the two kind of major gripes. And so we've taken that to heart, and we've explained around some of the reasons why that lottery is why it is, and there's unfortunately a technical barrier for us as it stands at the moment to kind of stratify and increase the number of rewards in a sort of more proportionate to sort of say, like, if you hold up to 1,000 algos, you can still have a higher chance of winning. So we recognized that there was a problem, or not a problem, but there was a concern from the community, or an interest in the community of our users, to not have that as a feature. And so we were at pains to try and understand what we could do that would allow the community to have more of a say without jeopardizing their ability to continue to stake and earn, the rewards in the products at the moment. And so, the process really was, well, can we create a governance token, or can we have a token that will give the community more say in how things happen, what for example, what kind of products we launch in the community pools, what types of rewards we give out, what types of NFTs we give out, what types of products we would look to be doing for the launch pads, and can we distribute those tokens in a way that is representative of not just how much they have historically held, but how much they've actually been using and interacting with our product. So we have all that information, in terms of what wallets have been interacting, how often they're doing calls, how often they're staking, things like that. And that is a really interesting piece of information that we're able to extract from the blockchain, and it shows, habits of users that, we have, of the 33,000 users we have this sort of like hardcore, few thousand users that are there, multiple times a day doing things. And so we want to build a product we wanted to find a way to recognize that, there are certain users that are using our product a lot. They clearly care about it. It clearly is adding value to them. So how do we, best give that cohort of our user base more of a say? And so the iYieldly token was conceived with that in mind. The point there was to have, it being weighted, the distribution of that being weighted more towards the historical use of our product. And, our view is that people who are using our product, they're going to have a very strong opinion on what that product should do. And this AMA is the genesis of that exact thought process. And so, in our mind, it was never, never intended to be a token that was, it was to give people a voice, but not necessarily, we didn't think of it as something that would be, something people would necessarily be buying and selling in the same way they'd be buying and selling, the YLDY token. And so, hearing the response and hearing the, the reaction is, again, was something that, the way we've interpreted that, and this is sort of, we'll come to some of the action steps we're taking around it. We've interpreted that we haven't done enough to explain what's there. We, think the community, we have a view based on the data and the information we've, consulted with, a small subsection of our community around. But, perhaps that's not entirely reflective of the multitude of voices. And so it makes sense for us to, put the information out there, to let people digest it, and then to decide, if that's, if they still want to have a, an iYieldly token. We don't have a strong view on iYieldly as a token itself. We have a strong view that governance and the need for, allowing people to have a say. We have a very strong view on that. And so, we will map out the options of, if we put governance and it's just YLDY, the implications of that. And if we put governance and it's YLDY, then, the implications of that. And then we can, give people time to digest, debate, discuss it, and then, we can put a vote down and see where we land. So, that's our view, and that's kind of the action steps we want to take. And, I think it's a good reminder in always, finding more creative ways to get input from our users and from the community.
For sure. I mean, I think one of the ways that this all could have been cleared up, at least from the start, is by, instead of just announcing, the iYieldly token with, a little bit of information, or the YESP token with hardly any information, announce it with the full Medium article that goes through like the why why you wanted to create it, how the token distribution will go, like what the point of the token in general is, just a document that carries with it all of the information that people will need, so that way there isn't this speculation that then happens, as we have both noticed over the last 3 or 4 days since the announcement of the YESP token. So I think that could go really a long way, just full transparency, tokenomics, and everything. You know where I'm getting at. But that being said, I'm just going to move on to the next question, which is Yieldly announced NFT partnerships with esports teams, Fact Revolution, and Boom Esports. Have those partnerships also moved to Polygon?
No, so those guys, as I sort of mentioned, all have been talking about Yieldly to their communities, and one clear example of that is what we've done with the co-launch with ZipMex in Thailand, and Talon was out there, talking to the Thai community. I think perhaps we can as always, we can continue to do better in terms of demonstrating what those partnerships mean in outcomes. But I think this is a very kind of Eurocentric AMA. Like, we have a very big Southeast Asian user base. We have I think we have sort of 15 or so thousand people within Thailand that just hold the Yieldly token and do stuff with it within ZipMex. We saw the success of our launch on ZipMex. We were the largest launch. We had, it was 5+ million or something along those lines. Like, this very significant multi-million dollars was staked by ZipMex users to get access to our token. Part of the reason of why that was a huge success is because we've had our esports teams going out there and talking to their fans about what we're up to. And this is one of the beautiful things and sort of misunderstood parts, I guess, of esports. I think one of the kind of the kind of feelings people have is, why does esports matter with crypto? And we've known very early on that gaming and esports and crypto share a very, very close Venn diagram of demographic. It's basically people between the ages of 18 and 35, playing in a male centric playing or watching esports, very similar to the same demographic of crypto. So the relationship there is, it's a user base that is primed to come over and do things in this market. And so the more products we can launch that will bring that are relevant to that user base, the more they start to do stuff in crypto. And so we've started to see the success of that with some of those early projects. Some of the other esports projects that we're launching with for Yesports, again, every way that we can bring those users and become their focal point, not just in NFTs, but for what they then do with DeFi, for what they then do with, NFT staking, for what they do, for NFT lotteries and whatever else. We want those users to be part of our Yieldly wider ecosystem, and then be able to bring them and be their gateway for all things, for our ecosystem, and then all things for crypto. So we think it is, it puts us in a significantly it puts us in such significant advantage in the long term, that we will continue to create products for these users that matter, and then show them products that we know that they're interested in. They just haven't had a pathway to get there. And so if it takes bringing people in and getting them used to all of the infrastructure with crypto through NFTs, and then delighting them with the DeFi product that is so straightforward and so rewarding, then we're very happy and very patient to take that time to go on that journey. And and that's what we're betting on happening.
Yeah, I appreciate the thoughtful answer, but I guess just for a little bit of clarification, so the NFT partnerships with esports teams, Fact Revolution and Boom Esports, just yes or no, I suppose those partnerships have moved to Polygon, or stayed on Algorand,
So they'll be
or
across
both.
both. Yeah.
Cross. Okay. Awesome. So, bearing in mind the 40% of token supply allocated to the team, and I'm speaking of the Yieldly token here, allocated to the team, expansion and partners, etc., how is the team resourcing and building Yesports, and how does that impact Yieldly's roadmaps and plans going forward?
But I mean, from day one, the thought process is, I sort of alluded to this at the top of the chat. It's basically like we could have gone down a path and utilized some of our reserves to, sell down and go on a journey of self-funding, a new business venture or the expanded business venture in an NFT space. And we elected to not do that. We want to be quite clear that there's a very clear delineation between the costs and the road. The money that we raised in May and January last year, is being used to deliver on the roadmap that we've sort of put forth and continue to evolve and update. We've utilized our resourcing in Yieldly to grow out the development team and to grow out some of the kind of key hires that we've been making at a sort of, I guess, at a sort of more senior level. For example, we've hired a great COO, we've hired a great head of marketing and a great head of comms. Part of what's allowed us the freedom to do that is, us in the last 4 months having undertaken a capital raise via the Yesports token to allow us to start scaling up a different aspect of our team. And so we've utilized that money to be able to to hire a whole other development team. So Aaron and Sash and Dimmer and Oscar and all of the very familiar faces from AMAs and conferences, all very much focused on the roadmap and the delivery of what we're doing on Yieldly, and exceptional in terms of architecting what is possible across all of the chains. So of the things that are being built by the new team that we've had engaged, there is certainly kind of oversight to make sure that at some point our vision for interoperability exists, that our vision for clear functionality between the esports token and being able to launch on Yieldly and being able to do things in Polygon, that's still going to happen. But the core build and the core cost of all of that is coming from the YSP side. So that's been important to delineate. The resourcing, to the small extent that happens across teams. We have a very clear kind of like transfer pricing system in place. So if people are working on one project, that is very clearly managed and budgeted for, and vice versa. But the key thing, I guess, the other important thing to note is that the support that we get for the product. We've been very fortunate on the Polygon side to have had significant resources by way of grant to deliver on being able to tap some of the top esports teams and being able to bring have the right to actually launch NFTs for them across across the esports platform. And that's and it's worth noting, like, that is, we had the opportunity and we presented the idea of this to a multitude of participants in both ecosystems, and it was something that only the Polygon side saw the value of delivering it, of seeing why esports made sense in crypto. And so there's a vision alignment with them that we were and then capital alignment that allowed us to be able to do stuff that will continue to benefit both sides.
Yeah, I totally understand the esports aspect of it. It's totally a growing part of the economy, if you'd say. However, I do just want to say I want to just go over one gripe that I do have with one of the answers you've given, because essentially, I guess it's not only my gripe, it's also a gripe I see here in the comments for sure. In your tokenomics, I have the Trust Swap Launchpad documentation here. Part of that 40% token allotment for the team and resources, 7.2% of that included marketing partners and events, including esports teams. So there is part of a concern that, why wasn't the tokenomics that were originally created for Yieldly enough to do what you're trying to do currently? But there's, you did touch on that a little bit, but another concern I had was, you said you didn't want to sell too many Yieldly tokens to fund this particular venture. But coming from a business standpoint, if you took the time and energy, maybe over the next 6 months, to really make Yieldly and then the Yieldly token one of the highest demanded ASAs, the token price could be 3 or 4 times more, which means you'd have to sell way less Yieldly tokens at that price to fund a venture. So I guess the question really, and I do want to get to other questions, so I don't want to spend too much time on this because we spent a lot on it. But I guess the real question is, why not, put all the focus on Yieldly, supercharge the token, have it go 3, 4, 5x, and then use that token to fund these other ventures, since it'll be worth much more and you don't have to sell that much of it.
Yeah, I mean, the premise, I love the idea that that we're not doing everything we can to make that as valuable as possible. I mean, I think we already are the most high demanded ASA token. We're the biggest pool, non-stablecoin pool on Tinyman, and have been since day dot. We're the highest value traded ASA across exchange, centralized exchanges. That's a pure play ASA. So, there is not one part of us that isn't continually looking to work out how to make us the most valuable and kind of core product in Algorand. But we already kind of are that, unfortunately. Well, we are that, and what we do to grow that is the subject of our roadmap and the subject of everything that we continue to do. So I think it is unfortunate that this last month we've had Tinyman down, and I think a lot of the cool stuff that we were just starting to launch right at the end of last year, like the whole team was in on New Year's Eve coding to deliver, the Akita pools and the follow-up support for that. That product, as soon as, we're very excited because as soon as Tinyman's back, that thing can supercharge. But for us to make a long-term bet that we will continue to sell down our token in reliance on some event happening in the future, I think is, we're very cautious about, putting significant downward pressure. Like, we're selling the biggest, but we're still not in a position that we can go out and sell $3 million worth of tokens and that not have a materially and downward impact on price. So we thought about that, and then the other consideration is the time component. Crypto is moving very, very fast, and esports gaming, play to earn, is a market that is showing no signs of stopping. Like, Solana has gone out there and spent $200 million to get the naming rights for one of the biggest esports teams in the world. Multi-year naming rights. The arms race that is happening in play to earn crypto esports at the moment is if we waited 3 months, to raise money, or raise 6 months, that it would almost not be worth it, because we would then be able to, potentially only have one team join us. And so, there is a very clear commercial and competitive time component to be able to do that, and we have to be kind of very responsive to that. And this comes back to that whole calculus about how we're making decisions, why we're making them, why, if we were to split off in one way or another, or if we were to continue on. And this is where we have an incredibly good DeFi product, we have an incredibly good roadmap. We will continue, and our focus, to make that as hugely successful as possible. There is still a very clear world where we need esport partners to talk to their users about what our DeFi product does and to bring their users over, and that remains unchanged. It then just becomes a feature of how we do that, and do that at scale.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer. Before we run out of time here, I do have just a couple questions I want to get out of here real quick. You mentioned the roadmap. What could we expect in the months to come regarding Yieldly's roadmap, specifically the development of a Yieldly AMM and DEX? and how would the Yieldly token be integrated with said AMM? Could it be used to maybe like reduce exchange fees or whatever? I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the AMM kind of dropped off our roadmap, with the advent of Tiny Man, and then even now we're starting to see kind of evolutions of, or other AMMs. We've got Wagmi Swap and Humble Swap as two kind of newer examples of AMMs now.
I think we're about to have like 5 AMMs on Algorand over the next couple months.
Yeah, and so you start to see, like, you can see a world where people will start to fork Tiny Man, or people will start to build, which we've seen, like, using Reach or elsewhere. And I think when we look across the market and we look at our the value add, one of the things that we do exceptionally well is is the staking pools, and some of the great things that are going to come out of our Teal 5 staking pool, which people are already starting to get a sense for, with the auto compounding and the LP pools, is we become a key kind of conduit for supercharging any LP pool out there. And so we saw that. It's like it was this like beautiful meteor with Akita, that we saw it for this 24-hour period before Tiny Man went down, that the LP pool that we launched with them, took them from sort of ubiquity, sort of like obscurity, into the second largest staking pool on Tiny Man. And so you start to see the power of those LP pools and being able to plug into liquidity across that. So that's one key part of it. The other one that is sort of central to that, which is driving at this goal of bringing this new users into the ecosystem, is MoonPay, which is the fiat on ramp third party that we've been working through the whole integration process with. And
I do want to ask sorry to interrupt. I do want to ask about MoonPay real quick. Is that available for US investors?
It depends on the state. So it is. I mean, it's out of our control. That's them and most other fiat provide, or fiat on ramps across crypto, or even just the traditional finance world, are it is dependent on their relationship with regulators and their product and how that looks. So to the extent that there is favorable regulation in parts of the US, then they're certainly available. And then it depends again on the gradient of what is it USDC that's an on ramp? Is it what else becomes an on ramp? I think Algorand obviously we're seen as fairly benign from a regulatory point of view across most of the US. And so it tends to be, a thing that we can provide fairly readily to a lot of places. But the end goal there is really just making sure that, whatever we're compliant every step of the way. But and then working across other providers if there's better providers for users that are inadvertently excluded.
Yeah, so I just want to bring us right back to one of the things you mentioned in your prior response, that the AMM fell off of the roadmap. Did it fall off completely? Because I know a lot of us envisioned and sort of hoped for Yieldly to become the pancake swap of Algorand. And I know it has the staking pools, it has the LP staking pools, as you mentioned. But has it fallen off the roadmap completely? Because if so, I mean, in my opinion, that would have been a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it definitely hasn't fallen off completely. I think, like all products that we have, I mean, we've put the architecture in place. We know what it would look like to build. We know the implication costs and time frame for that, and the core dependencies to build that. The thing that we look at, which you mentioned, there's going to be more, perhaps 5 or more AMMs coming up, on Algorand over the next quarter. Our view is, how do we make sure that we work cohesively with the community, and we don't, with products that exist, and we have a very good symbiotic product that allows for AMMs to thrive when they work with us. The second piece that we look at is then, well, if we know that there's all these great entrepreneurs building this AMM product, what else can we build around that will continue to support the wider goals of the Algorand, DeFi ecosystem to succeed, right? And one of the core products we see, still missing is the Launchpad. That's something that is, is apparent as any other kind of primitive DeFi product that exists elsewhere on other layer ones. And so that is crying out to be built. We know that there have been people that have tried to tackle that challenge and are still, there's still yet to be a product that's been launched there. And so, that's something that we've been quite vocal about, and we're very fortunate. I think we've got the first couple of play-to-earn game products that we're going to actually launch through that in the coming months as well. So, that thing is happening. We've locked down a KYC provider that's working out the best route for us to make sure that we do it in a safe and compliant manner. We've locked down the tech is already scoped, and the vast majority of it actually is already built and audited, and is already featured in parts of our ecosystem already. So the staking shares tech, the underlying tech for our share staking that exists for our staking product, that one of the layers of that is fundamental for how you start actually apportioning people's rights to contribute to the launch or the product that they want to invest into or put the tokens into. So we've started that has been built. We're reformulating that to become a cohesive product itself. We've already set up the functional entities within Yieldly to allow that to happen. We've got great lawyers in different parts of the world providing advice on that. So that product is on train and in ready to getting ready to launch. We've got Cosmic Champs, which is one of the leading play to earn games that graduated from one of the recent accelerators in America, is going to be one of the early products that we launched there. There's some others that have asked us to that will save up and announce in due course what they'll be, but it will this will be a fundamental and new piece of infrastructure for the ecosystem, and it's a piece of infrastructure that as we've always done is with Algorand is complement and look to grow where we can grow the ecosystem where we can without necessarily needing to compete directly with anyone. We've always taken the view that if people, entrepreneurs are out there wanting to build products that like Tinyman, that build great tech, then we're very, very happy to work with projects like that and be very symbiotic, and continue to divert our talented developer and product team resources to tackling other parts of challenges across the ecosystem.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer as well. So I suppose one of my next, not really concerns, but you mentioned with the roadmap that there was a launchpad coming, and I've spoken to CEOs such as with projects such as Algorand, and they've put off their token launches in anticipation. In anticipation for an Algorand native launchpad. Now, I know a lot of us. Sorry to bring it back a little bit. I know a lot of us envisioned Yieldly as it's like one-stop shop for Algorand ASAs. For launchpads, for DEX, for staking. You name it. But we see some of that use case kind of fleeting elsewhere. The AMM seems to be falling off the roadmap. The NFT marketplaces seem to be going elsewhere. Is there better news on the launchpad for Algorand and Yieldly holders? When would the launchpad be functioning?
Yeah, I think there's dependencies there in terms of the regulatory piece, and which basically we need to finalize the legal advice, and then the structure that has been suggested, which we've already actioned, is sort of set up, but finalizing the advice on that, which will then impact the actual product in terms of what or if KYC looks like, and then how we go about actually communicating that product once we, say take Cosmic Champs as a case study, how we communicate what that means for Cosmic Champs for people who are mistaking, to get access to their token. And so that is very much, on track. Like, we look to launch that, this quarter, or early next quarter. The, Cosmic Champs will have, I think we're slated to do that, much sooner, actually. So you'll start to see that coming to life quite quickly. But I hear your point, and I about the idea that there is, there are other projects out there that are waiting for key products to be built, to actually exist. And I think it is very important to reiterate that, we are still the only product in the Algorand market that, basically has withstood the test of time. We're, knock on wood, haven't been the subject to a major hack or an exploit. We've never had downtime, and we've never had, any kind of, we might have sort of slight delays in product launches, but we always have products out. We're always sort of executing what we do. You've talked about other projects on this, in this question, for example, and these are projects. There are so many projects that have been talked about to launch on Algorand since we started, right? And when we launched, for example, there was meant to be a bridge product that was going to coincide with our launch, so we wouldn't need to have a bridge. We would utilize third-party tech, bring that in, and focus on building out our resources to build out, the things that we thought were very mission critical in Algorand. Every time, with very few exceptions, that we have, looked to deliver a product that has relied on a native third party to have something in place, there has been significant time delays for that. That is an inescapable part of building new tech. But we sit as the company that has continued to build, to continue to launch, and to continue to distribute the, most rewards, across the market. And so, we recognize that, we hope that some of the frustration that people feel with us, they can also, empathize, that, we sit there waiting for, other core bits to exist. And, when we see great products like Tiny Man come up, we realize that, from an ecosystem point of view, for now, we can sort of, focus on something else that will be, add more value to allow more people to come around. So it's one of those things that, I'm very happy. I've always said that we're Australian, we have broad shoulders. We're very happy to get very critical feedback on anything we do. But I would love for us as a community to be, to reflect upon, where we've come from, what we've done as a company to, to push and drive as much as we can this ecosystem, and where we're excited for others to launch and join. But it is important to know, like, it is not an insignificant undertaking to be building, anything. And it's certainly not an insignificant undertaking to be building things in this ecosystem with a language that is, we have literal people who have had, are doing PhDs to understand and code for us. And so we all can see the examples of what's been floated to work but hasn't. And, there's a reason for that. And, we continue to do our very level best to deliver great products. But, it is, it is one of those things that, we just do want to just reiterate that, if there was more projects out there, it would make everyone's life a lot easier as an ecosystem. And, we know that they're all around the corner, and we're excited for that. And we will continue to build great tech to make it as easy as possible for any entrepreneur out there to kind of access this market. But, we're a company that's doing all that on a shoestring budget. We don't have a $20 billion, business in Algorand. We don't have, teams of hundreds across the world doing things. We've fought hard to where we've got to. We've been very meticulous in how we spend. We've been very thoughtful, and we're the beneficiaries of phenomenal community and fantastic developers, and and a great team. But we're still we're still a growing and small part, company in terms of size, and we're sort of, we're punching above our weight in a lot of respects, and we know there's lots of things we can do better, but we'll always continue to get better. But we do ask that that people kind of always reflect on that as well.
Of course, and I appreciate that. I know our time's about to run out, but I just have to say, as somebody that's been a supporter of Yieldly from the beginning, I mean, I still do have a few concerns. However, you did address most of them. I hope people in the audience have some of their concerns addressed as well. But you did, at the very least, putting the concerns aside, you did touch on a good point that you were a first mover in the space, and you got to give credit where credit is due. A lot of these projects that are coming months down the line will be able to learn from the mistakes that you and Tiny Man and all the other first movers have made. So I do appreciate that there will be mistakes made along the way, especially for first movers that are kind of carving their own path. But that being said, Seb, I know we only have you for this hour, and we just hit that mark. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and answering all my questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure. Like I said at the top, we'll have our teams, monitoring all the questions. One of the things that's going to come out of it as a takeaway is, we'll do an FAQ. We'll go and, try and encapsulate any kind of themes that were missed, or any kind of pointed questions that could do with more clarification. And then, Tim, who's our head of comms, is going through with his team to, to make sure that the story we tell, continues to be more, coherent across the different moving parts of our business as we grow.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that so much. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks, mate. Till next time.
Till next time. Take care. All right, everybody. I hope you appreciated that episode. A lot of things I could say about it, but I'm just going to jump on Twitter and see what you guys have to say about it, because this video has already gone on for about an hour, and I could go on for about another hour with my thoughts. So I appreciate everyone that stuck around to the end of this episode, and we will catch you in the next one. Thanks. Bye-bye.